friends, and welcome to my TED Talk. Just kidding, it's just a presentation. Today I'm going to be talking about autism and ABA therapy and a little bit about what that looks like in a classroom and how to utilize it and get the most effective results. So we'll start with a brief overview of autism to just kind of refresh you and keep those ideas in your mind. Autism is a developmental disorder that affects social skills, communication, and behavioral progress. Now, in a classroom, to be struggling with those things can make it a miserable experience for you. If you remember watching Fat City and just how difficult it was to keep up with everyone when you were socially feeling neglected, or like you didn't fit in, or you didn't know how to express yourself, or you didn't know what was going on, all of those can make the classroom experience a bad one, and we want to make it a good one. 1 in 54 children are estimated to have autism, so that number's getting pretty high. Just in my time, in my sophomore practicum, I encountered students with autism in a general education classroom, so it's something that is happening and that you need to be prepared for. 63% of special education students spend 80% of their day in a general education classroom. Not all of those are students with autism, but all of them may need a little more support. So it's important to understand some methods that you can utilize and keep in your back pocket for these circumstances. Symptoms can include repetitive behaviors, reliance on routine, and rough social skills. Now, as a teacher, we're told that adaptability is going to be our biggest skill. That's the thing we're going to need most because things change so often, so regularly. The only thing you can rely on is change. But for a student that struggles with not having a routine, it's important that you teach them ways that they can cope and just make the classroom easier for them as they deal with those changes, how to deal with them with grace, and what's appropriate, what's expected of them. That's when ABA comes in. You may be wondering at this point, what is ABA? And the thing is, I'm here to tell you. ABA stands for Applied Behavior Analysis, which is analyzing the behaviors that a student has and what behaviors you want them to have, what is expected, what is appropriate, and creating that target outcome. It's used for correcting behavior and improving communication. For individuals with autism, most of the things they do are not natural things. They're learned behaviors. So they take what they're seeing, what they're hearing, they use that to understand how they're supposed to act. Like the appropriate actions are not things that they just naturally have and they pull forth like you and I. They're things that they have to learn and work for. So ABA is really helpful for that in teaching them what is appropriate and expected. There are 3 parts to ABA. In some studies, if you're looking at a more scientific example of this, there are 5 parts, but we're just going to look at the 3 today because those are the ones you'll need in your classroom. The first one is antecedent, so that is the action or environmental thing that is leading up immediately to step 2, which is the behavior. So it could be a cause or it could just be something in relation to it that they can use to understand better. Behavior is the action or reaction to the antecedent. The way that they choose to respond to the antecedent or something caused by the antecedent, an action. And that leads to step 3, which is the consequence, whether negative, positive, natural, controlled, the thing that comes immediately after the behavior. You can remember this with your ABCs, so antecedent, behavior, consequences. Those are the 3 steps. An example that I used in my paper to kind of understand this process better, it's not necessarily a controlled scientific thing, but to understand this process better, you can think of it as a situation where a child is told, don't touch the stove, it's hot. They touch the stove and they get burned. The instruction of not touching the stove would be the antecedent, the thing immediately leading up to the behavior. The behavior would be touching the stove, and the consequence, a negative and natural one, would be getting their hand burned by the stove. And something that they could learn from that is either follow instructions or don't touch hot stoves. I think I would probably remember the latter a little better. It's important that you make sure that you're reinforcing your desired behavior because sometimes there are more than one outcome. Now you may be wondering, hey, what does this look like in my class? And the truth is, most teachers already utilize ABA methods in their classroom with the behavior and consequence part. Some simple examples would be weekly prizes for consistently good behavior from their class. It could be an extra recess at the end of the week because everyone did pretty well or they scored well on a test or something like that. Gold stars for immediate good behavior. Immediate gratification is like my jam. I love it. And so do most young kids. They live for that. You did good, here's your prize right away thing and not having to wait for it. So that's a really good example. Raising hand before speaking, that would be an example of an antecedent before behavior, which would be raising, then speaking. And that can really just help put that in their mind that we do this, we do that, and then everything is good. This is what is expected of you in the classroom. This is the behavior that we need. You raise your hand, you speak. And you could reinforce that with prizes, or you could negatively reinforce it with punishment if they do not follow those rules. ABA results in more desired behavior, ease in expression, so for students that have a tough time expressing themselves appropriately in situations that they don't love, it can help them understand, hey, that's not what we do here, but here's some alternatives that you could try. It also improves social and communication skills, which are so important, especially in early childhood education and elementary education, where everyone's already building those foundations, and these are things that a student's going to need the rest of their life to function well in society. I read an article the other day that was talking about the need for teaching things beyond curriculum, for teaching how to share nicely and how to interact with friends and how to treat other people, because students they'll have time to learn anything that they forget. They're not going to remember every fact that you teach them in school, but they'll have time to catch up on that. But the foundations that you lay for how to treat each other, those are things that are going to help them the rest of their life, and how to interact, how to treat each other kindly, how to treat each other respectfully. Those are really important things. And how to express yourself in a stressful situation. Contrary to this, that's my end slide, but we can look at it now, that's fine. Contrary to this, there were people who were very opposed to ABA at all and ABA in a classroom because, and a lot of it were individuals with autism, because they felt that this therapy was taking them saying, you need to be normal, your individuality is wrong, you as a person are flawed, and here's how we're gonna fix you. But the truth about ABA is it's a tool utilized to help them function well in society and not struggle and not be miserable and to thrive rather than survive. As a teacher, it's your job to make sure that your student is in the most comfortable environment for them to learn, especially as a special ed teacher, making sure they're in the least restrictive environment for them to learn. So taking this and still revering their individuality, still saying your uniqueness is so important to my classroom, but saying this might be a more healthy way for you to interact. This might be easier for you. This might make it better. And sure, making your environment the most beneficial for all students, but not changing them for the desire of others, but changing them to help them. Just understanding that. There are a lot of hours of therapy, so I can understand how the protests work, but in a classroom, that's just making life easier for them and easier for everyone. Thanks for being here and watching. I was really proud of the B for ABA, so I hope you noticed that. Hopefully you know a little bit more about ABA, and thank you guys.